So, you just got a job offer. First off, congratulations, because that is easier said than done in today's job market. But before you go signing that offer letter, these are 5 things you need to think about to make sure you're setting yourself up for success with your next career move and that you're not making a mistake. Assuming you're planning on staying at this job for more than a couple of months, are you going to be working on things that are moving you in the direction of where you want your career to go? It can be really challenging within software engineering to make a pivot to a different area of the field where you don't have professional experience, which is why it's really important that whatever you're going to be doing at this job is going to be either the right industry or the right tech stack or the right general skills that you're going to want to have for any future opportunities down the road. But beyond the actual work of what you're going to be doing, there's also the atmosphere. There's the pace, there's the culture, and what you want when you're 25 is probably going to be different than what you want when you're 45. Just because it's a great company doesn't mean that it's necessarily what you're looking for or that you're going to learn or grow in the ways that you need to while you're working that job. All right, for most people at the end of the day, this is probably why you have a job. To pay the bills, to maintain a certain kind of lifestyle. You aren't just working this job for the fun of it. Now, I've talked more about compensation before in other videos, but just to give a brief overview of a few things to look for other than your salary, you want to take a look at the cost of living in whatever location your job is going to be based out of. You want to understand the terms of any equity you might be getting in the company, and you want to understand the value of the benefits package. Okay, for cost of living, let's use a pretty extreme example. Let's say you get a job offer that's paying $100,000 a year in New York City. On the one hand, you've cracked 6 figures. It's very exciting. On the other hand, your effective buying power is probably equivalent to about $50,000 or so in an area with a much lower cost of living. For equity, this can be a huge part of your compensation depending on where you're working, sometimes even more so than your salary. But there's a lot of fine print around how this is going to be doled out. And you also have to consider the future of your company. Meaning, if your company starts to do really poorly, all of a sudden your compensation is going to be significantly diminished, but your equity could end up being worth a lot if the stock goes to the moon. And then in terms of benefits, the value of the benefits package is really going to depend on your life situation. So sites like levels.fyi will give you a rundown of all the different benefits and the different values associated with them. But depending on your lifestyle, you might not be taking advantage of all those things. If you're not working in certain offices, you might not get the benefits like getting free meals. So just take that value with a grain of salt. Sacrificing on work-life balance is one of those things where it's easier ahead of time to say that you're going to be okay with it until you actually have to deal with constantly being on call and being woken up in the middle of the night, or being up against the super tight deadlines where you're really stressed and putting in just a ton of hours to meet those deadlines, or the fact that you can't go on a vacation when you want to because there's blacked out dates because there's stuff going on at work and you can't take that time off. Unfortunately, this is one of the hardest things on the list to really get a clear sense of before you actually start working, because naturally companies don't want to advertise that they have terrible work-life balance or that the job is going to be really grueling. They would rather you just sign the contract and then find out a couple months later once you're actually working there. Now, for larger companies, you can read about people's personal experiences online on sites like Blind, and that can give you a little bit of an idea, but you also have to keep in mind that it's going to vary from team to team. There's companies that are notorious for having great work-life balance, where there's teams that are really burnt out and they're constantly working long hours to meet these tight deadlines. And then you have other companies that are really known for not having good work-life balance, where you hear about these pockets of teams where they never seem that stressed out and they have a really good work-life balance. But assuming that you actually do have a sense of what your work-life balance will be at this company, just try to be honest with yourself about what you actually want your lifestyle to look like in the next few years. The past few years have put devs in a little bit of a weird position in the industry. Initially, things were very much in-person centric. Almost all devs were working in person. Then you had the pandemic and everyone became remote first. And now you have a lot of companies that are trying to bring back their employees. For some people, this is not an issue. In fact, it might actually even be a good thing to get to work in person. You might get easier collaboration. You're going to have access to different amenities in your building or on your campus. And you also get to do some socialization. But this can also be a huge burden for some people, whether it's a long and annoying commute or you just have responsibilities at home, or maybe it's just that you have to relocate to a different area where your friends or your family aren't, and it might even be a higher cost of living. At this point, it's gotten a lot easier to get a sense of the landscape of which companies are doing remote work and which ones aren't, compared to something like 2021 when a lot of companies hadn't yet established what their long-term plans were going to be. Right now, you can probably get a sense of which companies are safe to go to and which ones aren't if you're really trying to work remotely. That being said, just keep in mind that even to this day, you see companies who are doing a complete 180 and saying, nope, you need to go into the office, who previously said, yep, you can work from home forever, no big deal, we're totally okay with you being remote. So, what's better than getting a job offer? Naturally, getting multiple job offers. Instead of needing to decide when you get a job offer of whether or not you should take it or whether you should pass and hope that something might come along that's better eventually, having multiple job offers at the same time gives you options. It also gives you more leverage if you decide to negotiate. Companies are generally going to be more receptive of candidates who have competing offers, and it also serves as validation that not only did you pass the bar at one company, you passed the hiring bar at a bunch of companies. Now, getting multiple offers at the same time is easier said than done, but scheduling your interviews to fall around the same time is going to make prepping easier so you're not spreading out your prepping over several months, and it also means that your offers are more likely to fall within the same general window. And in a lot of cases, you might be able to expedite the process with a company if you tell them that you're interviewing with somebody else or that you already have another offer, because they don't want to lose out on you because you've already signed somewhere else because they were taking their sweet old time getting you through that process. So sometimes something that might take a month to go through a couple of different interviews and waiting for an offer can be condensed down into a couple of days, just to make sure that they get their offer in your hand before you actually have to make a decision. All right, naturally, there's a lot of other things to think about before you actually sign a job offer because it's a huge life decision, but at the very least, if you think about these 5 things, hopefully you should be in a pretty good spot. Anyways, that's it. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll catch you guys in the next one.